Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody, right here in Erie, Pennsylvania. It's been an absolutely wonderful day. It is chilly. It is 39 degrees outside and blowing, but not like it's going to blow tomorrow. So button up. Tomorrow will be warm, but it is going to be gale force winds. So a Shabbat to remember. So for those of you in the sanctuary here, nice to see you. And for those of you out on Zoom and YouTube, thank you very much for being here tonight. So tonight, we're going to be having an interesting Devar Torah, at least I hope so, later on, because we are starting the book of Leviticus. Now, before I hear the collective groans from everybody, this is going to be kind of interesting anyway. So Jess will start us off on page 10 with Maya Hayam. Middle of page 6, responsively, please. May the door of this synagogue be wide enough to receive all who hunger for love, all who are lonely for friendship.
May it welcome all who have cares to unburden, thanks to express, hopes to nurture.
May the door of this synagogue be narrow enough to shut out pettiness and pride, envy and enmity.
May its threshold be no stumbling block to young or straying feet.
May it be too high to admit complacency, selfishness, and harshness.
May this synagogue be, for all who enter, the doorway to a richer and more meaningful life.
Lauren, would you be so kind as to light the Shabbat candles for us?
Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner Shel Shabbat.
We continue on page 12 with Psalm 95, Lechuna Ranana.
Lechuna ranana, lechuna ranana, lechuna ranana, l'Adonai. Lechuna ranana, lechuna ranana, lechuna ranana, l'Adonai. Naria, naria, litzuri, sheinu nekad mafaf betoda. Naria, naria, litzuri, sheinu bizmirot naira lo. Lechuna ranana, lechuna ranana, lechuna ranana, l'Adonai. Lechuna ranana, lechuna ranana, lechuna ranana, l'Adonai.
We continue on page 20 with Lecha Dodi. We will do verses 1, 2, 5, and 9.
Lecha dodi likrat kala yala lai b'nei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala yala lai b'nei Shabbat nekabela Shabbat nekabela hitoreri kiva orechu miori uri shir daveri Kivod Adonai alayich nigla lecha dodi likrat kala yala lai b'nei Shabbat nekabela boi v'shalom ateret bala gam besimcha uvitzola toch emunei am segula boi chala lecha dodi likrat kala yala lai b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Please be seated. We'll continue on page 22, Psalm 92, Mizmor Shir.
Mizmor shir liyom hashabbat tov lehudot Adonai uzamer l'shimcha elyon Mizmor shir liyom hashabbat tov lehudot Adonai uzamer l'shimcha elyon There I am. Lehagid baboker chastecha ve'emunatecha b'leilot amei asor b'alei novel alei higayon b'chinor Mizmor shir liyom hashabbat tov lehudot l'Adonai uzamer l'shimcha elyon
We continue with the Hatzi Kaddish on page 26. Please rise.
יתגדל ויתגדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
בעלמא דברך חירותי וימליך מלכותי. בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב במהרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ועולם מעלמיה. יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה בריחו לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא במהרו amen.
Please remain standing for the Baruch Hu on page 28.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Please be seated. We'll continue with the Ma'ariv Aravim on page 30, which tonight has some special significance. It's spring. Okay? We actually have sunsets that we can watch. Yeah. Rolling darkness away from light, light away from darkness. Kind of rings now. Means a lot more than the grayness of winter. Together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim v'chochma poteach she'arim uvitvuna mishane itim umachalif et hazmanim umisader et hakochavim v'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, המעריב ערבים. Page 32, Ahavat Olam.
אהבת עולם, מת ישראל, עמך אהבת, עמך אהבת, תורה ומצוות, חוקים ומשפטים, אותנו לימדת, אותנו לימדת. על כן אדוני אלוהינו בשוכבנו ובקומנו נשיח בחוקיך ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד. כי הם חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נגי יומם ולילה, נגי יומם ולילה, ואהבתך תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל.
Middle of page 33, please, responsively. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol.
All these things your Torah gives to us.
And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives.
What could be a truer token of your abiding love?
Then this holiest of your works in the living language that gives it form. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Please rise for the Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem, Kivod Malchuto, Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם המזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם Adonai Elohechem Emet.
This week at work, one of the nurse practitioners I work with came up to me and said, Dr. Vidmar, you're Jewish, aren't you? And I said, Kane? Yeah, sure. Well, I just found out that I am too. So this young woman is a granddaughter of Holocaust survivors and just found out this past month that she was halakhically Jewish. Now, just to make this more interesting, her intended, her fiance, and they're getting married this summer, finds out the same thing. So they are purchasing a condominium in Cleveland, and they have asked me to do the service for hanging their mezuzah. Which, of course, this is one of the writings that's in it. So, it's there. Miracles. They're all around. Page 38. V'emunah kol zot v'kayam aleinu ki hu Adonai Eloheinu ve'en zulato v'nachnu Yisrael amo. Top of page 39, responsively. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before we ever stood at Sinai's foot.
That wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise pauses through the wilderness.
That there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands and marching together.
Yai lai 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 yai lai 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 yai lai 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 yai lai 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 yai la 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 lai Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh Nora tehiloro seifele, Nora tehiloro seifele.
Page 42. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'hamidenu shomrenu l'chayim ufros elenu sukat shlomecha v'takenu v'itza tova milfanecha v'hushienu l'ma'an shemecha. Top of page 43 together. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts,
that we may lie down in peace and rise up waiting to do your will.
Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. We continue on page 44 with Yismachu in the middle of the page.
Yismechu v'malachutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha, shomrei, shomrei, shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Mekadeshei, Mekadeshei Shavi Shabbat, Kulam Yisbu, V'yitangu Mituvecha Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, V'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Uvashvi ratzita bo b'kidasho Shabbat, Chemdad yamim, oto karata Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat. Zecher L'maaseh v'reishit Shabbat, Zecher L'maaseh v'reishit Shabbat. Yismechu v'malachutecha, Shomrei, Shomrei, Shomrei Shabbat, v'korei oneg Shabbat.
Yismachu is more commonly chanted, recited, sung in morning liturgy. But you know what? It's light. Vahaya or, and there was light. Kitov. And you know what? It's really good, too. Please rise for tefillah on page 46.
Adonai, sifatai tiftachu fi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, קדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
The Amidas continued silently in devotion, silently. Top of page 58. Modim anachnu lach, sha'atahu Adonai Eloheinu, ve'Elohei avotenu ve'emunato, ve'olam vayed, sur chayinu magen yishenu atahu ledor vador. Together at the top of 59. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul,
our light within,
for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth which day by day sustains us. For all these and more we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hato shimcha ulecha na'el lehodot.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata melech Adon Lecho Shalom. Ki ata melech Adon Lecho Shalom. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rava Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam.
Top of page 61 together. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within our borders,
health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praised are you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamavarech et amo Yisrael bashalom.
The top of page 62, the Elohai Netzor part of the Amida, is a relatively late addition to the liturgy from times medieval. You know, when persecution was all around, and where the next guy next to you was going to slit your throat or beat up your kids or whatever. So it's a late addition to the liturgy. But the flip side is true. We don't really pay that much attention to it for stuff that we've done to hurt people unintentionally or intentionally. So in the middle of page 62, my God, guard my speech. Together. My God, guard my speech from evil and my lips from deception. Before those who slander me, I will hold my tongue. I will practice humility. Open my heart to your Torah, that I may pursue your mitzvot. As for all who think evil of me, cancel their designs and frustrate their schemes. Act for your own sake, for the sake of your power, for the sake of your holiness, for the sake of your Torah, so that your loved ones may be rescued, saved with your power. And answer me. Oh, say shalom bimroma, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Return to page 253. God, who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Leah, and Rachel, send your blessing to the following friends and family members who are in need of healing and comfort: Steve Tottleben, Jay Kaler, Sandra French, Diane Levy, Diane Kaler, John Myers, Martha Snyder, Lori Samuels, Sidney Scrimenti, Brooke Gelman, Gerald Hoffman, Eric Whitmer-House, Patrick Callahan, Sidney Kruzik, and Royce Haas. If you have any names that you would like to add to the Mishaberak list tonight, please see them as my eyes meet yours. And for those of you on Zoom or YouTube, you can enter them in the chat, please.
Mishamerach Avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, ve'Yaakov. Mishaberach Imotenu, Sarah Rivka Leah Verachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Misha berach avotenu, Abraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Misha berach imotenu, Sarah Rivka Leah Verachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
Well, it was a kind of a nice day, and then when I was asked to lead services tonight, I would say, "What's your parshat?" Vayikra, and I went, "Yeah." Now, of course, we're getting into the book of Leviticus, which I call the book of blood, guts, and gore. And of course, just to show you that God has a sense of humor, my son had his bar mitzvah portion, which was Tzav, which is, of course, next week, and I'm going to be on the Bima next week, and I get to do Tzav. So God does have a sense of humor, no doubt about it. So Vayikra, kra. You know, you can almost hear the Hebrew jump off the page here, to declare, to cry out. And he called out. In this parshat, God tells Moses the laws of the korbanot, sacrifice, the animal and meal offerings brought in the sanctuary, including the ascending offering, the olah. Kind of like what happened when I tried cooking this week in Cleveland. We had an olah right in the condo. The smoke detectors did not go off because I hit the windows very quickly. Pretty nice. There were 5 varieties of meal and grain offering, the mincha, which were prepared with fine hour, olive oil, and frankincense. There were offers of well-being, shalomim, whose meat was eaten by the one bringing the offering after the parts burned on the altar and the parts are given to the Kohanim. The Kohanim had to get their cut. You know, they didn't want to go hungry. The different types of sin offerings, chatat, brought to atone for transgressions committed erroneously by the high priest, the entire community, the king and the ruler, and an ordinary Jew. The guilt offering, asham, brought by asham news, sound familiar? Brought by one who has misappropriated property of the sanctuary, imagine that, who is in doubt as to whether or not he's broken a divine prohibition, or who has committed a betrayal against God by bearing false witness. Note that this is only for unintentional transgressions, not the ones that you do on purpose. Transgressions against all human must be resolved by sincere repentance, restitution, sacrifice maybe, but mostly by seeking forgiveness by the injured party. So let's just talk a little bit about meal offerings here as we get into this. This is some of the text, and you're going to hear some words that kind of make some sense. V'nefesh ki tikriv karban mincha la'Adonai. Solet yihei karbano v'yatzchak alecha lecha shemen v'natan alecha livona. When a person presents an offering of meal to Adonai, the offering shall be of choice flour. Okay, so what do they mean by choice flour? Any idea? The good stuff. In other words, not barley flour, wheat, is what it amounts to. Except for my wife, of course, and all celiacs out there who can't have it. Yes? What makes wheat better than barley? Because wheat is for good people. It's for people. Barley is for animals. At least is the halakhic teaching over the years, for what it's worth. Funny you should ask. And also, barley is one of those grains that celiacs can't have either. God does have a sense of humor. Okay, let's continue. V'hebiya el b'nei Aharon hakohanim, v'kamatz misham melo kumso, misalta mishamna al kol levanata, v'haktir hakohen et azkaretcha, hamizbeach asher riach nichoach ladonai. Boy, that's a tongue twister. And present it to Aaron's sons, the priest. The priest shall scoop out a handful of its choice flour and oil and all of its frankincense, and this token portion, a small part, he shall turn into smoke on the altar as an offering by fire of pleasing odor to Adonai. V'hanoteret mincha mincha la'aharon ul banav, kadesh kadoshim ma'ishe Yadonai. And the remainder of the meal offering shall be for Aaron and his sons, the most holy portion from the offerings of the fire. Hey, they got to eat too, right? No problem. Sacrifices. So what is a mincha offering? Sounds familiar. So what's mincha in liturgy? Anybody in the crowd? Afternoon. Okay, which kind of corresponds to the time of what in ancient temple times? The mincha offering. So that actually carried over into Rabbinic Judaism. Interesting. So quite a fair Sefer Vayikra is Sefer Bishul Kadosh, a cookbook for the Kohanim. How to do it and why to do it. So why is this important? In ancient history, human beings had a much more immediate relationship with God. Their perceptions of the need for sacrifice as a kind of atonement, or maybe even bribery, was quite clear in ancient mind. They saw pain, suffering, and death of creatures and fellow humans on a very daily basis. They saw famine, drought, and earthquakes and floods being the inevitable consequences of their own personal transgressions, as well as of others in the Jewish people. Hence, if you committed a transgression, even inadvertently, you were personally on the hook to atone for it for the good of the people, not to mention your own self. Today, our lives seem to be somewhat isolated from this sort of immediacy in what I call brainstem level notion of accountability. Have you ever had a cookbook in which you followed the recipe to the letter? Well, leather too, and it fell flat. Perhaps the chef did not understand at a basic level of what was required, or whether there were subtleties involved in this recipe, such as the size of the egg used, or which is a pinch of a certain ingredient, or the texture of a beat till firm. You know, for those of you that cook out there, I can see you smiling underneath your masks. My wife feels that way about The Joy of Cooking by Irma Rombauer. Everything she's ever tried in it, she's followed the instructions and it falls flat. So, it was a wedding present to us. She gave it away finally last year. She'd had enough of it. So for those of you who know how to cook, you undoubtedly have your own cookbooks that you too have jettisoned because you didn't quite get the feel of it. The same thing applies to the biblical short description of the mincha type of sacrifice. Mincha means present. You know, mincha is kind of associated with grain, but it actually means present or present, connoting grain and meal offerings. It represents the devotion of the fruits of man's labors to God because it was not a natural product, like an animal, but made with man's efforts. A piece of it was burned on the altar, which I mentioned, put it in the altar, goes into smoke, and the rest were consumed by the Kohanim. In the text that we just read, it's interesting that they use the term, this is in the fourth verse, which I didn't get into, they use the term challah in connection with unleavened bread. It's a loaf. So everybody thinks of challah as this nice, wonderful, fluffy stuff. Yeah, okay, so think of a challah made out of unleavened bread. That's what Pharaoh gave us to build things with, it tastes just the same. So, was the mincha a lesser offering than animals when you get down to the hierarchy of sacrifice? Well, yeah, it was indeed in value, but certainly not in intent. The lower societal orders could not afford small animals and birds, let alone large ones. A grain or meal offering was the only type that the poor could actually afford. The rabbis of the Talmud, as I found out this past week, waxed poetic over this topic, effusively, and then follow on over many, many centuries. From the viewpoint of 21st century Jews, the recipe for the mincha offering is far less important than the personal details of what prompted its preparation in the first place and the customization of that recipe by the individual, putting the cookbook aside so that you make it work for you. So as I finish out all my Devar Torah, as I say, as my dad, Frank Vidmar, a good Catholic man, would say, "Savai Shaddai Ker." No, he didn't do the accent. While we may not see the immediacy of cause and effect in our actions, like our ancient forebears kind of felt, or what is going on around us today, we can't discount it totally evil either. Every act that we do involves a choice, and those choices have consequences. The words that we say have consequences, especially if a whole lot of others follow us. Pirkei Avot, mitzvah goreret mitzvah. Not just for yourself, you influence others. Avera goreret avera, not just for yourself, but because you influence others. Okay. Please rise for the Elena.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, hateit gedula leotzeh breshit, shelo asanu kegoyei haratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umadim, Lifnei melech, malchei hamlachim, hakadosh baruch hu, shehu notei shamayim ve'yosed haaretz, umoshav yikarom b'shamayim imo, u'shchinatu zo, begovhei meromim, hu Eloheinu einod, Emet Malkeinu efezulato, kakatuv b'torato, v'yadatayom, v'hashevota elevavecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, b'shamayim nimal, v'yaretz mitachat einod, v'nemar v'hayadonai l'melech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, yeh Adonai echad, u'shemo echad.
Please be seated. We were just praying for when the world shall be one. In Cleveland Wednesday night, we had something that we haven't had in a very long time. We had all the providers in our department at our medical center, we got together. All of us were vaxxed to the max. All of us had 2 days of negative tests. Hey, it was cool. Now, one of our number is a, Torah-observant Orthodox Jewish woman, Miriam, and we wanted her to be part of this. So we ordered from Jade Chinese Restaurant on Cedar Road. So this was nice. We had everybody around the table. And we had a great time. It was wonderful. And amongst all of us there, I had 2 Muslim staff members. They absolutely loved it. And Miriam and I started off with how wonderful it is for all of us to be together. Hine Matovu Manayim. Easy melody. So the Muslim folks were singing along with us. Yeah, we can do that. יש הכוכבים שאורם מגיע ארצה, page 291, רק כאשר הם עצמם עובדו ואינם. There are stars up above, so far away we only see their light, long, long after the star itself is gone, and so it is with people we have loved. Their memories keep shining ever brightly, though their time with us is done. But the stars that light up the darkest night, these are the lights that guide us. As we live our days, these are the ways we remember. This week, we are in Shloshim, the first 30 days after interment, for Jack Wright, the father of Jessica Maldet and grandfather of Trenton, Moriah, and Naomi. We're also in Shloshim for Lois Kobiarski, the mother of Ted Kobiarski, grandmother of Ben and Lila. And also we're in Shloshim for Chaim Topol, tradition. If there are any names to add to the ArtSite list before I recite, please say them now. This week we commemorate the ArtSites of Samuel Weiss, William Schuster, Harry Oppenheimer, Francine Fox, Ovid Cohen, Ruth Leah Powdermaker, Martin Shore, Barbara Michelle, Francis Jacob Solomon, Simon Williams, Adolf Buckstein, Rose Kopperberg, Janet Rudolph, Jacob Slater, Moses Frank, Harold Rubin, Gisela Khan, Melvin Strauss, Solomon Herzog, and Gussie Shapiro. May their memories be for a blessing, and together let us say the Kaddish. Please rise, page 294. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach cherutei v'yamlik malachutei, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'meru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olamei olmaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shnei dikusha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu el kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. Zikronam livracha, may their memories be for a blessing. Please be seated.
Can I just say one, sometimes it's fun to talk about the ArtSite list. So Bill Schuster, so first of all, he was always there Friday night, but my ever-living memory of Bill Schuster will be of him adjusting the thermostat. No matter where it was never right. And Bill and his wife were both wonderful, wonderful people and did a lot for the community. I should be talking about that. But my memory is of him playing with the thermostat. No, it didn't matter. He was going to play with that thermostat. He'd be very unhappy in this building.
Well, as one would say, complacency kills. So, complacency kills. So you kind of have to check the temperature every now and then. Okay, and who's doing our announcements tonight, Craig?
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
Thank you, Jesse and Dennis. As always, a very enjoyable and very nice service. Thank you very much. Services this week are in memory of William and Libby Penn. Tomorrow, Shabbat morning, services are going to be by Zoom only. So that's this week, and to give you a heads up, also next week. Services and Torah study will be on Zoom only. Let's see, on Thursday, there is no Gesher. I'm sure some little ones are happy about that, but one of your teachers told me you get time off for good behavior, so not happy. Oh, I like to hear that. That's good. Yeah. Let's see. Second night Seder. Join us on Thursday, April 6th, for a Passover second night Seder. The cost for adults is $25. Children 4 to 10 are $10, and children under 4 are free. You must RSVP and pay in advance, and you must RSVP and contact the temple office by March 31st, and that's a week from tonight, so please take notice. If you haven't done it yet, please do. If you have noticed the tubs, containers out in the hallway when you first come in, they are part of Ben Kobierski's Bar Mitzvah project. And what he is doing is taking donations for the local animal shelters. If you look in the Temple Topics and in the weekly emails that you get, there's a list of things, of items that they are collecting for the animal shelters. And so let's help Ben out with this project and give him a hand and bring some things in. And finally, as of April 1st, a little bit of a change in our COVID policy. As of April 1st, we will no longer require proof of vaccination or require masking. However, we strongly encourage all congregants and guests attending indoor and outdoor services to be up to date with their bivalent COVID inoculations. They are very, very effective, and so we encourage you to be up to date on them. Also, this should go without saying, but some people need reminded. If you are systematically ill with any kind of symptoms, or especially respiratory symptoms, stay home. Attend service virtually, watch it on Zoom. Please do not come into the temple. But anyone who wishes to continue to reduce their risk of getting COVID or any other respiratory illnesses should wear a high-quality mask. So there still will be some folks here that are still wearing masks. Shabbat Shalom.
Case in point, one of my residents stepped off the plane from attending the American Academy of Dermatology in New Orleans. He gets home. He feels great for about 4 days. And then it turns out, just for fun, he tested himself. He was positive. So he'd been passing virus to all of his patients. You know, he was only wearing a surgical mask, not one of these things. So he was passing virus to his wife, to his children, to people around him. So this is important. So take care. Okay, we'll close with, excuse me. Odam Chesed Yabaneh.
Olam chesed libanei, yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. Olam chesed yibanei, yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. Olam chesed yibanei, yadadai, yadadai, yadadai. Olam chesed yibanei, yadadai, yadadai, yadadai.
After the kind of week I've had in Cleveland, this is okay. Page 4. Vaychalu hashemayim va'aretz v'kol tzva'am, vaychi Elohim b'yom hashvi melachto asher asah, yishbot b'yom hashvi mikol melachto asher asah. V'yavarek Elohim et yom hashvi v'kadesh oto, kivo shavat mikol melachto asher bara Elohim ma'aseh. Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu. V'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu. Zikaron l'maaseh Bereshit, ki hu yom techila l'mikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim. V'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh hashabbat. Amen.
L'chaim. It is the best cough syrup money can buy. And now I need a volunteer from the Oh, look.
Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Enjoy Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Go ahead, pull off some. Enjoy. Thank you.